Children of 8, 9, 10, and 12. Give them a special hand. At the other end of the pole, there were people like me, over 60, some a little more feeble than I, but brave at heart. And in the middle were the souls of the earth, those in their prime, who are custodians of all the energy of the revolution, which we have to fight for our freedom and well-being. Our program this afternoon is simple. The Patriotic Coalition calls this march to get the people to take part in a fight to better our own conditions, the conditions of the people. To better these conditions in various ways. The coalition was formed because of the denial of the right to vote. And the right to vote does not mean going into a ballot place and scratching a paper. It also means the right to have those votes honestly counted. Today is the anniversary of Sharpeville, the day when they shot down scores of people in South Africa at the place of that name, representing an extreme form of denial of human rights. There the struggle took a very bloody form of repression. It is not because our struggle here is not very bloody, except for a few selective assassinations and work of bandits. It is not because of that that we also do not suffer denials. And today is a day of denials, not only a day when we look at our denials, but a day when we have taken a long step to turning back these denials.
Oh, good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening, on a Monday evening, and it's always good to be back. Coming in here this evening, coming in here this, the voice there of the sage himself, the black man of Guyana. I call him Black, Red, and Contrary. Brother UC Guyana, speaking there in 1987, at a march from Buxton to Kitty. We saw the drummers there, African drummers, Tacit drummers, Indian drummers, accompanying the marches. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. As Brother UC says, we were in a period of denial there. And you know, as the old people say, you know, the more things change, they rearrange, they remain the same. Here we are, almost 40 years later, fighting the same battles, but on a different scale, on a new battlefield, And we are called upon to march again, to turn back our denials. We are called upon to struggle again, to turn back our denials. Good evening and welcome to all of you. Welcome to Politics 101. I would like to welcome Everett, Content, Patricia, Grace, Andy, Floretta Hamilton. Good evening to you, Floretta. Welcome to Cakes and Decors watching. If you guys can say where you're watching for, it helps, you know, so that we can get the breadth of our viewership. All those of you in Guyana, welcome. Welcome, Pam Halls, Corinne Day. Good evening to all of you. Good night to those of you joining us from somebody's joining us from Mahdia. Neville Sital from Mahdia. Wow. Mahdia all the way in the interior. I like to refer to Mahdia as Little St. Lucia. You know, lots of St. Lucian roots there. People came from the islands and settled a lot in Mahdia. But Mahdia has been in the news, not for good reason. For all the good people at Mahdia, welcome to Politics 101. Watching from Texas, Troy. Troy is watching from Texas. And of course, my brother, Thomas Robertson, viewing the program from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. Thomas, I had the pleasure of hanging out with your family in Arizona this past weekend. I saw your brother and your cousins, all of them, family affairs. So I got out. I was out. They got me out Friday night. I went to a 9-night wake. A good friend of mine, her mother passed away. Her mother was the daughter of Winslow Carrington, who was a former labor minister. Former labor minister's daughter. She died, and I got to know her because she lives in Arizona, and I know her daughter quite well. And she died this past week, and they had a 9-night for her on Friday, so they managed to pull me out. They wanted me to say a few words. Winslow Carrington, former labor minister under the PNC government in the 1970s. I think it might have rolled over into the 1980s. Yes, his daughter, Hazel, she passed away, and they had a 9-night, so they got me out on Friday. And then on Saturday night, Thomas Robertson family, they had a birthday party, and they got me out there. And then on Sunday night, they had an after party, and they got me out. 3 times out, Flash Garden, 3 times out for the weekend. They cost me out a lot these days because I used to be what they call a party animal in the days, you know. All of us did it. We partied from Thursday right up to Sunday. And if you wanted us to go on during the week, we did. But over the last couple of years, I have slowed down considerably, and my friends, they get in my case. Professor, we got to bring a crane to get you out. They would call me and invite me out, and I would say, I'm coming. And they say, Professor, we know you too well. Once you lock up in there, you ain't coming out. But they managed to get me out this weekend 3 times, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. It was good to be out and to hang out with friends and so on. And I did have a good time. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening, Cheryl. Good evening, Vibert White. Vibert, yes. Vibert, of course, is watching from the East Bank of Demerara, from that good city of Grove. Grove is a city now. When you pass in Grove, you can hardly pass there. More car than road. Grove, Vibert White. Flash Gordon is drawing us from the quarantine. And Flash Gordon always has a lot to say. One of my favorite persons. Years ago, I may have told this story here before. Years ago, I accompanied Christopher Ram, who had brought a private charge against Mr. Jack Dio, and the case was being heard in Wim. And we got there at the Wim police station, and when the case was finished, I came out of the courtroom, and there was this man, regally African dressed, and he came up to me and said, Dr. Hines, I was watching the social media all the way from 52, and I noticed you're here, and I jump in my car, and I drive and I come here just to meet you. And we took a picture. I've been looking for that picture. And Flash Gordon has been a friend and supporter, outspoken. He disagrees with me a lot, and we take it in stride. Very good, but he's a lawyer. This Flash Gordon. Good evening, my brother. They can't keep a good man down. They can't keep a good man down. Good evening to my countrywoman, Lynette Greenwood from Annandale, Buxton, Annandale, Congo, we say Congo Pasture, Congo Creole. You all hear me go on bad Friday night was Friday night. No, and I said to make a river ass there. I don't think them learn from Annandale, them Congo people. Good evening, Lynette. Good evening. Good evening, Cyril Adams, Debbie Collins. Good evening. Cheryl Pancham is always here, watching from New Jersey. Welcome, Ethelyn Peters. And of course, Paulette Greaves is here, watching from Maryland. One of my homes. Lynette is watching from Maryland too. That's where my people have settled. My mother, she's quite in her 80s. She probably gone to sleep already. She just got to sleep at 7 o'clock and then wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, which is 2 o'clock when we there. And then she called to tell you, good morning, my son. Mommy, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're there. But my Marylanders, that's my American home. My American home. Spent Christmas and New Year's there, and I had a lovely time catching up with friends and family, and Paulette Greaves from Maryland too. To see the younger ones, the nieces and nephews and all of them growing now and big people and saying, Uncle David, let pour your drink. I said, what? Oh, times have moved on. Welcome to Politics 101 on a Monday evening. I got a special request to play a calypso tonight by Trinidad Rio, going back to basics. Sister Audriana, who is a faithful. She said, Doctor, she wanted me to play it on Friday, but I didn't see it on Friday until I came off. Trinidad Rio, one of my favorite calypso. Back to basics. With all the blackout you get in Guyana, no light. You got to go back now to jog lamp, flambeau, they used to call it. Back to basics. Trinidad Rio. Only the Calypsonian can do it like that. Can say it like that. Let's listen to the song of Trinidad Rio. Back to basics.
I'm not all my friends to let them know
that if they have a message to send, tell Tempo. And if they come home and they see me, tell me neighbor, or get a pen and writing pad and write a letter. Cause the SPT does make me weep. One of the days when old talk was cheap, I make a phone call to Alvaro and I get a phone bill to Mexico. Oh my lad, before they kill me and kill me quick. Going back to basic. A piece of marling and two climpan wouldn't do the trick. Going back to basic. I went and buy me a motor car for my own comfort. Cause I can't take no more torture waiting on transport. But all them potholes and all them bumps, me can't able until they invent a car jump. I will travel. I beg the Lord to please put a hand, touch the heart of this gay parts man. I used to have a raise in the bank. Now every cent gone in me gas tank. Now I prefer roller with piece of sticker. Going back to basic. Or buy a 3-speed bike, go in chick. I'm going back to basic. Now the only competent source that really working is when you can't pay your bills on time. They come cutting. Incompetence and disregards. Ain't no humor. Cause the situation is sad for the poor consumer. The word water doesn't give me gripe. I ask for water, they can give me pipe. I can't even get me clothes to wash. My toilet full and can't even flush. Now they make me condemn my toilet bowl. Going back to basic. And now I'm digging a latrine hole. Going back to basic.
Yes? You like it? I do. Trinidad Rio. Trinidad Rio. Back to basics.
Yesterday, I went to the store to buy a cooler and get me Indian partner next door to make a chula. I buy a donkey cat from Ramdeen to make a stagecoach. Then put some savarin in my latrine to kill the cockroach. I buy a posy made in Hong Kong, the only silver posy in town. Well, if you see the latrine I built, here is the cleanest one on the hill. All down inside the hole and around the walls. I always splitting. You know why? To make sure cockroach ain't bite me.
Trinidad Rio.
Back to basics. Long time me, Gypsy and Kokro. Back in the earlys, we used to go downtown after show, pick up the ladies. Window shop, take them along, buy them a roti, then find the cheapest hotel in town and make a pakoti. But time changes and so do we. So put that down in Kaiso history. But if you should do the same today, it's like a game, a Russian roulette. So now before one of them get me sick, going back to basic, I prefer sit down in a corner and going back to basic.
Trinidad Rio. Huh? Back to basics.
You know, from the time I take off the tie, that's it. I went to public utilities and tell them disconnect them facilities. Was me a wonder. I tried to contact the ombudsman, but never in office. I'm going to file me an injunction on public service. But every time a heavy rain fall, by me don't have no current at all. They spoil my TV, they spoil my fridge, they nearly kill me with low voltage. Now before they make me a lunatic, I'm going back to basic. I'm going and get a flambeau and lamp. I'm going back to basic. Thank you very much.
Oh Lord, Trinidad Rio. Trinidad Rio. Hey. Oi, oi, oi. They spoil. They spoil. They spoil the TV. They spoil the everything spoiled. You all know what they talk about in Guyana. You all gotta go back to basic. We gotta go back to basic. It's flambeau and wick and jog lamp and battle lamp. Even jog lamp was up there because you had to get the jog. We used to do battle lamp. You get a big battle and so on. And that is where they're pushing us back to in Guyana. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Good evening to Annette Gordon from Maryland. The Marylanders are out tonight. Colleen Sarah Andrews from Maryland. Maryland. Oh, yes. Good evening to Walkabout from Buxton. By the way, you know Walkabout from Walkabout. There's a bad man in Buxton, Rudolph Thomas, better known as Walkabout. Mr. Neville, where you know Walkabout from? Good evening to all the Buxtonians in the house. Good evening to all the Lindeners in the house. All the people from Arizona, my friend Nigel Noreen, and all of them. Is them get me out this weekend, and Nigel and Alston Williams and Hubert and Stacy and Michelle and all of them. We were celebrating my sister birthday, sister Dawn Jonas from Linden via Buxton. Via Buxton, they're Buxtonians. They moved to Linden, the Jonases, and so on. Dawn's 50th birthday this past weekend, and we had a lovely time. My friend and brother, Mr. Jonas himself, Roger Jonas, and his wonderful wife. Good evening to all of you, Angela Jonas, and the people in Arizona. I keep forgetting you all, although you all are my peeps. Rhonda Lane, good evening from Denhamstel. Welcome to Politics 101. Denhamstel, one of my favorite places. I did say on Mark Benchop the other night that, Belladrum is perhaps my favorite village outside of Buxton. And my family and them from Denhamstel called me and said, David, what kind of lawlessness and slackness you're going on with? Denhamstel got to be the village that you like after Buxton. I spent a lot of time, my holiday, August holiday, not summer. August holidays I used to spend in Denhamstel at my family, them, the Griffiths. And they called me and said, David, put your mouth right. It can't be Belladrum. It got to be Denhamstel. Well, all right, there's a tie between Belladrum and Denhamstel, Belladrum and Denhamstel. Good evening to all the people at West Bobis. Would you all believe it? I already get book up. I already get book. They call it this book, the one man band and so on. I already get booked for speaking on emancipation, and quite a few villages have requested my presence, and I will have to do some juggling. But I am making one village, making that a priority, not because they were the first people to contact me, but because it's a place I have special memories of also. Well, that West Bobis. Life spare, I'll be in Weldad to spend some time there for the emancipation, to share some time with them. I know I always stiffen the people in Essequibo who have always been asking for me to go there for emancipation. It's difficult because, you see, Buxton, our big night is the 31st. And I can't leave Buxton on a night like that. I can scamper away on the 1st, but not on the 31st. But I will have to split it up and see. But I definitely will be in West Bobis, particularly in Weldad, God spare. I will be there for the emancipation. I don't know what I will do about Essequibo. I keep disappointing Essequibo every year because you can't, unless I get a private jet. I can't get to Essequibo and meet back to Buxton and so on. But we'll see. But a special good evening to the people there in Weldad. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. People were saying that the Friday night show was the bomb. Yes. Good evening to Audrey Garrow. Yes, Audrey, Essequibo out there. I'm so sorry I can't ever make it there in emancipation. Yes, Audrey, Trinidad Rio is one of the best calypsonians of all time. He doesn't get the accolade because he never win any big title and so on. They just call him the free show calypsonian. The free show calypsonian. Because he performs in so many free shows. But a wonderful calypsonian coming out of our sister isle, Trinidad and Tobago. Danette Booker, good evening from PA. Danette get big shot now, Danette don't say from Pennsylvania. Good evening, Dr. Hines and viewers. I am watching from PA. Pennsylvania. She get very big shots. Danette, I hope I'm going to see you home for emancipation. Good evening. And good evening to you, Sister Comrade Francine Cruz. Diard WPA Traveler. Diard WPA Traveler. Good evening to you. Good evening to Ray Andrews. Yes, it's Monday evening, and we are here on Politics 101. Yes, on Friday night we had to talk some things because people always want you to say what they want to say and so on and thing, and I had to make it very plain that we have discrimination in Guyana. We have racial discrimination and we have class discrimination. All the working class people are being discriminated against and are being treated badly, poor people. But black people, poor or rich, are also being treated badly. And we tend to collapse the narratives and get the thing twisted according to the young people. And what we sought to do on Friday was to say, no, no, no. The discrimination against black people is for real. And we want to make that clear. And I am walking on 2 feet, not 1 foot, 2 feet. Racial discrimination and class discrimination. Later in the night, I was on Mark's program, and I got a chance to expand the discussion somewhat. I think Mark might have been a little taken aback when I said I was a Marxist. But I quickly said I am a black Marxist. I came of age in the 1970s. I matured in the 1970s. And the 1970s was a time in our Guyana and Caribbean when the issues of black power and the issue of black dignity was foremost. It was a black power movement. And so I am a child of black power. I'm a child of black empowerment. I'm a product of that. It was also a time of revolution. Left-wing Marxist organizations were springing up all over our Caribbean, and we were talking about revolution. Bob Marley said it takes a revolution to make a solution. And so therefore, the combination of Marxism and black power and Caribbeanness, really those 3 things informed my politics. And I've walked with them throughout my life. I've walked with all 3 of them. My Caribbeanism, my blackness, and my commitment to the poor, the powerless, the working class. As a Marxist, I accept Marx's explanation that the world is divided into classes. And that the richer classes, the upper classes, use their power, whether that power comes in status or money or whatever, they use it in order to control society. And so the working class is always struggling for its survival. I accept that thesis. But my Marxism is tempered, has been mediated by my blackness. I come from the nigger yard of yesterday, says Martin Carter, leaping from the oppressor's hate and the scorn of myself. I turn to the world of tomorrow with my strength. If you're black, you cannot escape the reality that you are sons and daughters of a particular and peculiar form of oppression that Karl Marx did not deal with. Marxism did not deal with the question of slavery and the question of racial discrimination. I am a product. I come from the nigger yard of yesterday. I cannot escape that. My Marxism has to be mediated by my blackness. Because my blackness comes with a particular stain and a particular streak and a particular response and a particular lens to the world. No other race in the world has had to endure the misery of chattel slavery. Chattel where you became cattle. None other. And so therefore the phenomenon of race can be ignored by white Marxists and brown Marxists and red Marxists, but black Marxists cannot avoid it. From Walter Rodney to George Padmore to C.L.R. James to U.C. Guyana, all of them, except if you're in the PPP. You got some black Marxists over there who deny that they're black. But authentic black people who are Marxists cannot escape that blackness. Walter Rodney said, I did not choose to be black. I would rather be talking about other things. But if a man uses my race to dehumanize me, I will use my race to humanize myself. Hence, I'm a black Marxist. I'm a black Marxist. And that is a difference between other Marxists. Other Marxists have the luxury of ignoring race and calling it false consciousness. The consciousness that comes from being black is not false. And you all are black and you all know that consciousness. Fortunately or unfortunately, in our Guyana today, the question of black consciousness has come to the fore again. Black consciousness comes to the fore whenever black people are pushed against the wall. And they're constantly being pushed against the wall. In our Guyana today, they're being pushed against the wall, not by individuals. If an individual person don't like me because I'm black, that's their business. But when that individual has the power of government and state and uses the power of the government and state to put in practice his or her prejudice against me and people looking like me, then that is racism. And I got to fight back against that. I got to fight back against that. Black people have been pushed against the wall in Guyana today, have been for a long time, but more pronounced since 2020. Because since 2020, the power of the government and the state the economic wherewithal, the power that comes with the economic networking, both the power of the state and the power of the private sector is in the hands of one or two ethnic groups which are not black. People don't get power to play with it. And that power is being used to push black people against the wall. And the question of black consciousness has to come. At this point in my political career, I have to make some clear choices. I'm always an advocate for the working class, will always be an advocate for the working class. I am a product of the working class. I may have escaped the day-to-day ravages of the working class because of education, but I am a product of the working class, and I will always be an advocate for the working class. But at a time when the power of the government and the state are crushing black people, African people, regardless of class, I have got to make some clear choices. And the choice I have to make is not one or the other, but which one I emphasize. And at this point, I emphasize my defense of black dignity and my promotion of racial equality and racial justice, which means I emphasize black people business. Don't care what people tell me Well, you must talk about Marxism, and you must class, and you must talk about this, and you must talk about that. You do not choose for me what I talk about.
It's time to shut
What I talk about is determined by the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation. You cannot tell me what I must talk about. I choose what I talk about. I choose what I talk about. And my choice is determined. It is determined by the reality of the situation. And when I look around Guyana today, whose homes are being bulldozed? Whose women are being spat upon? Whose sons are being killed in their bed and killed by the police wherever they go? Which organizations' monies are taken away by the state? Which group of workers are being kicked around by the government, refusing to meet with their unions and to pay them a living wage? You see all of that happening to Black people, and you are telling me I must not speak about it. No, no, no. No, 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 no. I'm not only going to speak about it, I'm going to try to make Black people wise about it and try to help Black people to develop the consciousness that is needed to fight back against it. And that's what we are here for. You tell me that I must talk about class and I must talk about this and that. I always talk about class. But you're telling me I must not talk about Black people business. I must not talk about Black people business. I must not mobilize Black people. One of the painful things about Guyana is that once you open your mouth and say anything Black, they call you racist. The only people in the world, when their sons and daughters defend them, they're being called racist. This is serious times, brother, and we are in the business of mobilizing our people to take back our rightful place in Guyana, not to be superior over anybody, but to have our rightful place, a place that we deserve. I always let the wise men and women speak for me. Speak for me. I always let the wise men and women speak for me because their words are words of wisdom and encourage me and mobilize me. You want me to sing but that when Black people ain't got. You want me to sing but that when Black people ain't got.
one more time.
A lot of people tell us, you finally explained trading to me in a way I could understand. Then they start seeing profits.
Dr. Harris Liverpool, the mighty Chogas. Chucky, it's time for you to change your style and sing on things that are lewd and vile. Your topics and them are good, but the young people and them want smart. People telling me, Chucky, like you're blind. Today is sex selling down the line. My boy, take for instance Shorty. His sex songs make plenty money. Well, my answer is simply look here, son. Is all you blind to what's going on? Man can't get paid, no onion. Famine in India killing millions. The world is suffering from inflation. Banks in New York bankrupt, no more funds. Refugees running from bombs and guns. Over 1 million just leave Saigon. So understand, in every land, war is on top. The world's corrupt. That's what we have got. And you want me to sing out smart? I rather not. Black people they got. And you want me to sing out smart? Oh, Chalky, when people come inside your tent, they want to get good entertainment. Your big songs are out of context. Can't you give them a little sex? My boy, look, Rose, Lords, Baby, and Diane. You don't see how they just move and whine and getting engagements for so in St. Thomas and Toronto. Oh, so then I tell them it's time black people think. Must our culture deal with what stinks? Obscenities, whining and sex play can't help black people in any way. Today look at our Caribbean. Black suffering from poor legislation. Jail for life for guns in Jamaica. You can't plait your hair in Dominica. And be aware in Grenada. The mongoose plot and kill Bishop. People, that's what we have got. And you want me to sing about smart? I rather not. Boss Smiley, you got. And you want me to sing about smart? Oh, Chalky, can't you see the world is obsessed with making money from filth and sex? Soul and pop singers are rich guys. Calypsonian should do likewise. But can we be happy and dead in sex when black resources the whites possess? South Africa still have a party and black leaders in Rhodesia jail. Oh yes, while workers fight for peace, justice and bread, police want their leaders weak and shattered. 15-year-old boy killed brutally. Don't this act shake your human dignity? Government ban Rafik Shah's voice from the air. Sixth and fire the Leon and Hampton here for supporting the all workers strike. Muckling by 2 Rolls Royce, man can't buy bike. The rich laughing, the poor starving, prices soaring, there's real famine. People, that's what we have got. And you want me to sing about smart? I rather not. 5 children I've got. And you want me to sing about smart? Keep the faith.
Hey, 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 hey. Y'all hear it there. Y'all hear it there for yourself. That's how we do. We mix the race and class. We talk about the high prices and we talk about the inflation. But we always talk about black. You all listen, Chalky, they're good. He weave the blackness, the race and class. He didn't say, well, black people suffering, but Indian people suffering too. No, that's slack talk. That's slack talk. Black people suffering and poor people suffering. The black people suffering is a special type of suffering. It's a special type of suffering. You hear me talk about killing Indian people don't have to mourn police going in the bed and shooting their sons. Thank God. It shouldn't happen to them. And it shouldn't happen to we. But when it happened to we must talk about it. Because it's a particular kind of sufferation. The prices are in the market, but on top of the high prices in the market, we suffering assassinations. They're holding them little by for 2 ounces of marijuana. Throw them in jail. They're spitting in women's security guard face. Woman lawyer, black woman lawyer. Now she's the middle class. She ain't working class. She ain't poor. But she, because she black, she get thrown in jail to talk for talking to her client. You watch Mocha, you watch Linden. They're broken down their houses, kneeling down upon their chest, women, black women. The Indian community doesn't have to go through that. Yes, the Indian community suffering the high prices. But on top of the high prices, black people suffering some other thing. All house, panwa, all house. That's how we put it. All house, pan all house. And we have to say it that way. There's nothing racist about that. It's real. You know what it is to turn out to a meeting. Notice, invite you to a public meeting. Come tonight to hear the speakers and you turn out there. And they're watching you in your face. You're black like Ace of Spade and telling you, yeah, you're suffering, but other people suffering. Go tell other people that. Go to all a meeting in their community and tell them about their suffering. But if you come in me community, talk to me about my suffering and what you're going to do about that. You see, sisters and brothers, if you don't believe that black people's suffering is unique to that community, when you get power in your hand, you're not going to pass unique legislation and put in place unique policies to deal with that unique problem. That is why black people in this situation we are today. Except for the early years of the Burnham regime, when despite all Burnham badness, he implemented programs and policies that dealt with the issues of the poor of all races. But he also put in place policies that spoke directly to some of the problems that black people faced. It was the time when there was the partnership between ASCRE and the PNC. And that is why today they fear a certain partnership. They talk about what? The WPA tail wagging the dog, the PNC dog. And they're telling the PNC, don't worry, them Hines and them WPA, they want to push you all in a certain direction. They fear the direction that people like myself, and I unashamedly say that. Yes, if the PNC is the big black party, when they get power, I want them to look after the problem of the black people whose majority vote push them in power. I'm not ashamed to say that. I want them to deal with question of poverty. Poverty for all. The most revolutionary policy that is on the table in the last 5 years to deal with poverty comes from the WPA, my party. My co-leader, Dr. Clive Thomas, is the author of it. The cash transfer and universal basic income for all Guyanese, all households. That is the class. That is the class policy, the social class policy. That is the policy to deal with poverty for all ethnic groups. But then we have to talk about policy to deal with the particular problems of black people. The poverty in the black community is chronic. It's systemic. Wages. If you negotiate with GAWU and you give the sugar workers $150,000, you said that is your wage. That's your minimum wage. You don't negotiate with teachers union. You don't negotiate with the public service union. You don't negotiate it with the nurses union. You give them $80,000 as their minimum wage. When the sugar worker with E150 and the teacher with she 80,000 and the nurse with she 80,000, when they go to the market and they both go to buy the piece of pumpkin, well, the one with 150 able to buy a bigger slice of pumpkin than the one with 80. Black people, you all understand what I'm talking about? I don't want you all to repeat that nonsense. Black people suffering, but other people suffering. You see that example I give you there? 6.5% you give to teachers. You negotiate with a union. You give them 6.5 cents out of $1. On every dollar they're earning, you give them 6.5 cents. You all know the math. Well, not even math, arithmetic. 6.5% of $90,000, $80,000. Awada. You give sugar workers a top up of $250,000, a top up. And then you meet with a union and negotiate with a union to give them a rise in salary. You're damn well right. You are right. You have to do that. The sugar workers deserve it. But where is the 250,000 top up for teachers and nurses and police and soldier? Where is their 30% increase in salary? Oh no, you don't give them. Why? Why you don't? Mr. Jack Joe trying to play, he's a big economist. Well, teachers don't produce anything. They don't produce anything. They're far from coconut tree. They don't produce nothing. Them children they're teaching in school and they're molding their mind and their brains for pass the exam. There is nothing. There is nothing, no? Them nurses we got to clean people in the hospital, take care of them so that they can live. Then are nothing, no? In a nothing. You are damn eyes past black people. That's what it is. That is the origin of it. They merge economic argument with racial prejudice. They use the economic argument that teachers and public servants don't produce anything tangible. They use that economic, it's a backward argument, but they're using the economic argument to advance their prejudice of black people. Well, if teachers don't produce anything, close down the schools. Close down the schools and let us give teachers, those people who are teachers, tell them go into business, give them money that they go into business. Close down the schools. If teachers are producing nothing, nurses are producing nothing, shut down the hospitals. Soldiers and police producing nothing. Shut down the army. You are a damn fool, because that's what you all think we are fools. Every category of worker is important and indispensable to the workings of any society. I do not know whether Jack Joe is racist. I do not know whether Irfan Ali is racist, and I don't think I care to know. What I do know is that these men hold the power of government and the power of the state in their hands, and they're using it in ways that discriminate against one ethnic group. That I do know. That I do know. And I'm saying it here tonight, and I'm going to continue to say it. That black people, you all have to wise up to your all condition. You all are suffering as workers, as working class people, as poor people, but you all are also suffering as black people. Because there is a way in which that suffering has a brown face and a black face. I don't begrudge the sugar worker for that $250,000, but I want $250,000 for teachers too. I want that $250,000 for nurses too. I want that $250,000 for police and army people too. I want that $250,000 for the small African businessman and businesswoman who is not able to go to the bank to get any loan to expand their business. They go to the small business bureau and they got to fill out more paper than the couple penny that they will get at the end of the day. Business is about networking. The business network. Indians have been able to grow their business because they have an Indian business network. You go to your Mati and you get credit. Businesses run on credit. I take from you on credit. I sell. I pay you back. You give me credit for next week. I think that's how business work. If black people don't have a business network, where they're going to get the credit from? They have to go to Indian business and Portuguese businesses for credit. And you all know the rest of history. Let me say this. I hear a lot of my brothers and sisters meanwhile. I hear my brother Betaram Ramarak, who has done a wonderful study of the gentleman, the brother who created Prashad Nagar. And I hear Betaram say he didn't get a handout. He borrowed money from people, but he paid back. But he didn't get a handout. Betaram know better. He's insinuating that other people saying that in order to get into business, you got to get a handout. Betaram, you know better. You know that no business class, no ethnic group that is doing well in business got there without the help of the state and the government. No, none group. The great United States of America. In order to vote, in order to run for office, you had to own property. At the birth of the United States, only white men who owned property could vote and run for office. By the 1830s, The American government passed legislation, the Indian Removal Act, to remove native Indians from their lands down there in the south where Georgia and the Carolinas are, to remove them forcibly from that land and to give that land to poor white men. By giving them land, the state give them land. Collateral. Take it away from the native Indians, the Indian Removal Act by law. And then, of course, there was slavery, in which they got land, and they now got some slaves. And through turnover of cotton, you become a millionaire. You move from a poor white man without any power to now a white man with power by the act of the state. The state take lands from others and give it to you, and the state take black labor forcibly, and give it to you for nothing. That's how poor white men become rich white men in America. The state in Guyana has given lands to Amerindians. God bless our Amerindian brothers and sisters. The state made land cheap for Indian brothers and sisters. Those are facts. Indians were able to buy lands at cheaper prices when they came off the plantation. When black people came off the plantation, they bought land with their cash money, and then the state did what? Raise the price of real estate. Make it harder for them to buy land. One goes so, and one goes so. That is where the structural racism is. That's where the structural racial inequity is. Portuguese people and Indian people didn't say, oh, you know, we come and we get better brains. The state helped them. The government helped them. The colonial government helped them. The colonial government didn't help black people. They used the state to crush black people economically. That is our history. And any government looking at that history that is talking about equality and justice has to correct that historical inequality. That is what David Hines means when he talks about reparations from this present government. I don't want this government to give black people nothing, handout. I'm against handouts. I want the government through policy to close the gap that the government created, the gap between Indo-Guyanese and African Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese and Portuguese Guyanese on the one hand, and Black Guyanese and Amerindian Guyanese on the other. That gap was not created by the laziness of one group or the better sense of the other group. It was created by the government, by the state, the colonial government. And when government creates inequality, government itself has to correct that inequality. In America, they attempted to do it through affirmative action. Where is our affirmative action in Guyana? If black people don't speak up, they will crush us. And some of us black people feel that we ought not to speak up. We take the route that, look, we're going to look after ourselves individually. A lot of black people, well, not a lot, some black people are being lured into that. I looking after myself. And you go to the table and they give you 2 million. And while you dead on your eye, dead on your hand, smiling at your 2 million, They're giving you Indo-Guyanese brother 200 million. You that smell you with your 2 million. Oh God, 2 million. And where you shut your eye, they're giving you Indo-Guyanese brother 200 million. He then is in a better position to negotiate his poverty. WPA is saying no, give everybody the same. If you take 10% of the oil money, 220 households, you divide it, everybody get the same. If the Indian is here, the Indian family is here, and the black family is here, and all of them get the same thing, they're going to move up. But the gap is still there. We now have to go back to the table and say, what about this gap? We got to do something about this gap. And that calls for another kind of policy. That calls for a direct policy to deal with African poverty. I've said some things about the David Granger government. I said, David Granger government, it is not true when I hear black people say David Granger government and the coalition didn't do nothing for them. The government did a lot for poor people of all races. Did a lot. We talk about blackout now. The government is blackout under Granger. And all people of all races, poor people of all races benefited from it. What the David Granger government didn't do was to implement policies for black people as black people dealing with black problems. And as I said that I want to be fair, David Granger did two things that were directly directed against black people, directed to black people, sorry. He set up something called the RAID program. They got a loan, I think, from the Caribbean Development Bank, and he identified 4 black communities: Ithaca, Buxton, Triumph, BV Triumph, and Mocha. And the intention there was to redevelop agriculture in those communities. The project didn't get very far because it was not well thought out. But at least Granger put that in place. Didn't get very far because it wasn't well thought out. And then when the PPP government come in, they shut down the project. So that's one thing that Granger did that was directed to black people. The second thing was to give a government subvention, I think it was a couple $1 million, to Itpadaji. And that wasn't a lot of money. The money was given for black people to observe the decade and to use the money to train, to do some training and encouragement of black people. But it was directed to black people. And Granger has to get credit for it. The PPP government come in, they take away the money. So those are two things that Granger did directly to black people. He did something directly for Indians. He poured a lot of money into Gaisuko. And when he decided, I'm going to right-size Gaisuko by trying to make it business, you see, our Indo-Guyanese brothers like to talk about business. And Granger was saying, well, let's run Gaisuko like a business. Oh, no. Oh, no. No, I had some problems with the way in which they went about dealing with the policy. I had no problems with right-sizing Gaisuko, but I know that you weren't going to dismiss 4,000 Indians and get away with it. And that is why I did not agree with closing the estates. Our position was that you turn the estates away from sugar and let us start planting other crops on the estate instead of sugar cane. Keep the workers there. Don't knock them off, but diversify out of sugar to other crops. And Dr. Thomas has advanced that. Don't shut down the estate. You're walking into the PPP and that's where the coalition went wrong. The policy was right, but the implementation was wrong. Because of the ethnic thing. But I'm saying to say that tens of millions of dollars were pumped by the coalition into Gaisuku that benefit directly Indians. So when they tell that Granger never do nothing for Indian people, they're lying on him. He did more for Indian people than he did for black people as black people. He did more for Indian people as Indian people than he did for black people as black people. He did things for Amerindian people as Amerindian people. You have to be fair to the man. He could have done more for black people as black people. But I think the government was timid. They didn't want to be accused of racism. So they didn't want to aggressively deal with the African problem. And at the end of the day, we are where we are. The government could also, the coalition government could also say it did not have a lot of money to play around with. And so it had to be careful. This government got a lot of money to play around with. And we see how the PPP is doing policies that appear to be benefiting everybody. So you make a highway. You're building a highway on the East Coast. It's not a highway for Indian or black people, or it is a highway for everybody because the highway passing through all the communities. But who are the contractors? The money that's going to build the highway. Who are the contractors? They're sure and black like me and black like you. That's where the racism in the policy comes in. It's not infrastructure, is race neutral. But the contract is not race neutral, brothers and sisters. David Hines talking to you all here tonight. So, here's what I want you all to understand. Don't be unfair to Brother David Granger. Be fair to him because he did a lot for poor people, as poor people of all ethnic groups. He did not do much for black people as black people. He did more for Indian people as Indian people, and maybe Amerindians. I haven't researched that. Maybe, but certainly he did more for sugar than he did for public servants. So be fair to Brother David. If the PNC gets back to power, black people, you all got to make the sign on a dotted line that when they get that power in their hands, they're going to be inheriting a gap between the rich and the poor that long so. But they're also going to be inheriting a gap between the non-black poor and the black poor that also long so. And they got to sign on the dotted line that they're going to correct it. The PPP is never going to correct that gap. Not willingly. It takes a government that includes the African representatives to close that gap. And it's the right thing to do, the just thing to do. Do not allow the PNC, the WPA, and the AFC to get away with it. Do not. I am telling you all, no. I belong to the WPA, and I ain't allowing the WPA to get away with it. What I'm saying here, I'm saying in the council of the WPA. Black people, you all have to, all the people that you all are giving your votes to, all them are accountable to look after your problems. Don't fool yourself, they can't do nothing for all you out of power. Out of power, what they can do for you all is to mobilize you all to take power. And insofar as you all are critical of them, is maybe they're not doing that the way you all want them to do it. They're not doing it aggressively enough, but they can't do nothing for you all when they're out of power. When you're in the opposition, you don't got no power to distribute nothing. Black people have to come to grips with the fact that we have to find a place at the table of power permanently. What does permanently mean? It doesn't mean rig election to keep the next side out. Because that don't have a long shelf life. That used to happen in the past, and the PPP trying it now, and it won't last forever. If you want to be in government permanently, you got two choices. You either rig to get there permanently, as the PPP is doing, or you decide that we are going to have a joint government of all the political forces. That is the only way we can stop rigging. That is the only way we will ensure that all of us are permanently at the table. You're married, you got your husband and wife, and the husband alone making the decision. The wife said, no, that's not fair. Are we going to run the house and you alone making the decision? I got there in the decision too, because I is the wife and I is the mother. It's the same thing in politics. If you want to stay in power permanently, you got to rig the hell out of the election. And you got to hope when you're rigging for powerful external forces to endorse your rigging. And that's what the PPP has done. And that is what they are doing. Black people, you all are poor and you all are black. And those are two impediments in the society that we live in. Poorness, poverty, and blackness. Double jeopardy, you call it. And so when we move in, we move with that in mind. We move with that in mind. We are black and we are poor. Double jeopardy. So when you hear me say that I am aware of poverty of all races, and it has been my lifelong quest to reduce, if not eliminate, poverty of all races. We now have the wealth to do so. But I also recognize that although there is poverty among all races, the poverty among the race that I come from is a peculiar kind of poverty, one that is being exacerbated by the prejudicial policies of this present government. We are here, and we're not staying here. When some of our foreparents landed in this part of the world, they said, we ain't staying on that plantation, we gone. We moving out, we moving on. They call them Maroons. Baracara, that's where Shamar Joseph come from. You go to Jamaica, they got plenty there. You go to Suriname, they're there. We're moving on and out. And you all got to say the same thing today. We are moving on and out of this plantation that they're trying to lock us down in this era of plenty oil and gas. And you all got to prepare to fight for it. How you fight will be determined by a number of factors. How you fight will be determined by a number of factors. Leadership is important in how you fight. Consciousness is important in how you fight. The response of the government is important in how you fight. The response of the international community is important in how you fight. How you fight is dependent on a number of factors. But it comes first with your consciousness and the leadership of your group. The government, how it responds to that, will also determine the shape of the fight. How the external forces line up will also determine the shape of the fight. But you're not going to get nothing if you all don't fight. And you all have to make sure that your leadership is in fighting mood. If I listen to most of you, you all do not believe that we are in fighting mood. And if you all don't believe we're in fighting mood, put me in fighting mood or move you out of the way. Put us in fighting mood or move us out of the way. The answer is not to crawl over on your knees and go to the PPP and beg. That's not the answer. But if you crawl on your knees, you will remain on your knees. And you know when you remain on your knees going to be bruised and people going to be walking all over your back. That's not a route to liberation. To try to satisfy your little individual gluttonous, licorishness. We got to fight. And how we fight is determined our own self-organization, our own fighting leadership, our own consciousness as a people, and how the government responds in the international community will determine the final outcome. I'll see you all tomorrow night when we come back and continue to shape this fight. Because fight we must. Fight we must. The hour is nigh. We ain't got much longer. We ain't got much longer. The PPP galloping. And there's a reason they're galloping. Because they know that we are not going to stay easy forever. And by the time we are ready, we hope the pantry is not empty. Time is not on our side.